get rid of the president, but you can't get rid of the president or the ex-president. He's my designated mouthpiece. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks up there for joining us. I'm just going to make a brief report. Last time, as we discussed, we presented several ideas to you guys. And could we try joint meetings with different types of clubs, which everybody seemed to be interested in? And another idea was to work with various nonprofit groups to see if they would be interested in having us share some photography. Yeah, could you show the one that says writers?
Okay. The one that I had up before?
Yeah. Not that one. No. No, I don't think I want to share it.
Why do you put sharing up there anyway? Which one do you want?
I don't know, using writers and someone's stuff.
Is it in the sim?
It's on a PDF on this.
Oh, that's right. This is.
Yeah. I need actually. Couple people. And so probably won't be ready. I think we forward.
One example would be writers and poets. Could we have somebody write something and we could do photographs that would go along with the writing? There are two clubs, Richmond Young Writers, which is obviously young writers, Youth Voice of Growth, Creative Writing, and so on. I'm going to show you a couple, and if you have any interest in them, let me know, and I will establish contact with them. And the other one is
Nonprofit.
nonprofit. And the other one we talked about was working with various nonprofit groups to see if they could use some of our photography. This is an organization called GuideStar, which some of you may be familiar with. It ranks and describes just about every nonprofit in the country. Can you go through this? Because I've got it. Yep. Don't take notes or anything. I'm going to send this out as a PDF to all the members later on. But this gives you an idea of some of the groups that we might be able to hook up with, either as a group or probably individually, like Feedmore or Richmond Roughhouse, which is dedicated to rescuing homeless dogs. I've got about a whole bunch of these that are all rated highly by GuideStar and are also not loaded with money, like the BMFA or something. These people would probably be open to volunteer help in the sense of photography for their web pages, for their own recruiting, for the brochures. You want to just keep going because I've got a whole bunch here. Performing Arts Alliance, the Junior League of Richmond, just keep scrolling along. Yeah.
Peter, in that platinum and gold, those are rankings that they give them.
Yes,
Okay.
gold are considered El Primo.
And better than platinum?
No, platinum is great.
Okay.
But all of these are reputable organizations that the Science Museum, St. John's Church Foundation, you know what that is, the old St. John's Church, Virginia Supportive Housing, Connor's Heroes Foundation, United Way of Greater Richmond, Petersburg Children's Museum of Richmond. Now, some of these may have their own freelance photographers, some may not. But I've got about 30 of them here. And as I say, you don't have to make any decisions or make any notes right now. Because I will send this out as a PDF to everybody. But there are some things there that I hadn't really thought about, like the City of Richmond Library Foundation. Now that's an organization that doesn't have any money. They try to do a lot of stuff. I doubt they have money to pay for professional photography, but they have a lot of programs that one of us may be interested in photographing, helping them out. Richmond Wildlife Center, there's another group that I really didn't know much about, but Senior Connections, you get the idea. So what I'm going to do is I'll send this to people. You can either send a note back to me indicating an interest in one particular one, and I can get some contact information for you and set up a phone call and see if you can arrange a meeting. Ed.
Yeah, I like the idea of the Young Writers Association, something like that. Because, collaborating with a group like that.
Yep.
We can develop, a really amazing program
Oh, yeah.
that we could have actually, we can pitch that to some of the different galleries that are here.
Oh, yeah.
In Richmond to the combination of the stories and the photos. I think it'd be
Well, that's, I did get the idea from one of these camera booths somewhere else, and what they did on a regular basis was they worked with, I think it was poets.
Yeah.
And the poets would write a poem, it would be shared, and the photographers would illustrate the poem. And the end result was in the local library, was this fantastic show of photography, poetry, which I would hope we could get to down the road.
I think the other spec for is like photographs and use that as inspiration to write from.
Yes.
I think it could go back that way also.
Yeah, we talked about that, vice versa, we can supply photographs and ask the writers to come up with something. One of the ones that didn't show was, and I have some contacts here, the James River Writers Association, which is an organization of all kinds of writers, my wife and daughter, that kind of ilk. And they, I think would be very open to having either way. Frank.
Yeah, I think another aspect along the lines with you and Ed are talking about would be the creation of photo books that could be used for fundraising.
Sure.
Yeah. All of these groups, all those nonprofits need money. I didn't choose groups that are already have deep pockets. So and fundraising is, absolutely necessary for these people, and my guess is. Could you pay attention up here? So anyway, is there, anybody here got?
I think we do all.
Hey, Peter,
Yeah,
got two things I'd like to share that this is a good idea, what you're proposing. I volunteered, I think about 3 years I did, for Hanover Habitat for Humanity.
yeah.
Whereas I would shoot pictures of their working on the different houses, and also the dedication man. When they would dedicate a house to one of the people for which the house was completed, you talk about a tearjerker. It really was something.
Yeah, I worked on one of those too. Yeah, yes.
And number two, we do have a visitor, my understanding.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, do you remember?
Bruce. Hi, Bruce. Bruce.
Hi, Dan from Penn Parks.
Right. Yeah, Mark.
Is
There are
it-
two visitors. I won't ask you to stand up and introduce yourself and tell us what my photograph is. That can be embarrassing. But what I'll do is I'll send this around and give me some indication of your interests and so forth. And if you really want to get into it, go to that GuideStar webpage because it will tell you all about the organization itself. And much to my surprise, it will tell you how much money they have in some of these places. you would not guess how many millions they were. Not the ones I chose. But anyway. One more thing, if you could show Tuck's photograph. You've already seen it once, but it'll come back. People Cluck's plan exhibit at the VNFA. And I want Chuck to talk a little bit about what he encountered with this. There we go, Chuck.
Morning, everybody. Morning. As some of you, I'm from, well, I lived in Michigan for 15 years and I belong to a camera club there and still, and then stuff digitally now that we can do that. And I've been in that club for probably close to 50 years now. And it's a fun group. So I submitted this, they have a monthly competition. You submit 4 slides in black and white, 4 in color. So I submitted this picture. And the president, who was a really great guy, a friend of mine, wrote me back and said that the committee was rejecting this picture for competition because they felt it was, the subject matter was inappropriate. And so I wrote back to him and I said, let me explain to you that this photograph was taken at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, one of the top 10 probably museums in the country. It had an exhibition called, I think it was called the Dirty South.
Dirty South,
If I'm not mistaken. And this picture was there. Now I have to tell you, when I took this picture, it still does send chills down my spine. I mean, there was just something very powerful about that picture. And it was a commentary. The man who did these costumes is an African-American tailor, and he did it as a social commentary. And so I said, that's the background of this photograph. And he wrote back, and as I say, he's a good friend. He said, nope, but he says it's inappropriate. We're not going to put it in. So I wrote to Peter because I have tremendous respect for his journalistic talents and his ability to see things as you all do, and said, what's your take on this? I certainly didn't do it to offend anyone, quite the contrary. And so he came up with the thought of the suggestion of us having a dialogue about that this morning for a few minutes.
Well, maybe not necessarily this morning, but I thought there would be a impetus for a nice program sometime. We've all taken photographs, but we've looked at it later and said, should I have taken that photograph or not? Was I invading privacy? Was it embarrassing? What's the ethical issue here? So I thought maybe at some future date, I'll go through your files, pull out some photographs that you think maybe are iffy, that maybe would lend themselves to this kind of conversation. I've got a shot, for example, of a homeless person on the street in London. He's squatted by a mailbox. He's got his cup up, begging, and he's got this agonizing look on his face. Now, did I invade his privacy? Well, I was on a public street asking for money. Did I not show him that? It's an uncomfortable issue, people on the street begging. But on the other hand, I thought it was really a good photograph. But I'd like to, everybody have something like that. Ed?
Yeah, I would suggest just putting it on schedule at some point in time.
I'll put it on the schedule.
It's this month, that's what we're going to do, make it a couple months out at least.
Yeah, I'll give you
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, I'm just interested because it's the ethical issue here is just because you have the right to take a photograph on a public street, does that mean you should take the photograph? I don't know. One of my favorite shots, and this was years ago when I was working in New York, Nelson Rockefeller was on the campaign trail. And he was being heckled by some students. And so he leaned over the podium and went. And my guy, he got the shot of rocket. And it ran across the country. Now that one is pretty clear. You got a public official out there campaigning for votes, students are heckling and he doesn't, and he loses his cool.
Photojournalism is different.
Photojournalism is, yeah,
I mean, you got your own set of very strict ethics, but, you know, that's news.
that's news, it's news. And the other ethics is the good photojournalism, you don't change the footage.
Right.
What you get is what you took. You don't go into Photoshop and do all kinds of stuff too. Which is the constant argument some of us have constantly. Is how much do you, Ed, you, how much do you?
I don't use Photoshop.
I know what you mean. So anyway, I will put that on the schedule in 2 or 3 months and go through your files and see what you've got that might lend itself to a conversation about, was this appropriate or not? Chuck, you were telling me before the meeting about one you got of a train accident where you've got a gruesome shot of somebody being treated. Invasion of privacy? No, I don't know. But I'd like to hear people's thoughts. Right.
I just wanted to just add that, Dirty South went on tour around the country.
Yeah.
Well received wherever it went.
That's right.
Both in Sydney and Denver.
Magnificent exhibit.
It was a great exhibit.
And, you know, I agree with you when I saw that, it sent shivers down my spine, you know. Yeah, I mean, that was just amazing, and it wasn't actually part of the 30 seconds, it was separate. You know, there was separate rooms, it was, yeah, I just can't fathom why somebody would think it's inappropriate. Well, I can,
But you can.
about that.
Okay, we've got some other business to run through before we.
Send it to Chuck's place in Michigan, see if they are gonna accept it as an exhibit.
Tom, can you talk to us a little bit about what's going on with you?
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about is looking at how we want to go about doing some group shoots. And so I did get some feedback from people about things that they'd like to do. There were some very good ideas on places we'd like to go. There's places that I've never been to, so I would like to do them myself because I haven't done them. I haven't spent enough time really around Richmond, getting to know the nooks and crannies of the city. And so I would like to do more of that. Some people are willing to travel a short distance. I'd be willing to travel up to 2 hours for a photo shoot. And I'm willing to carpool, and most people seem that they would be willing to carpool. So I'm just asking people to send me whatever suggestions you have so we can develop a list of things that we can set up for some photo shoots, either close to home or a little bit further out, whatever people are comfortable for.
Thank you. Yeah, it's whatever people are comfortable with, and we can assure people that we will not arrange photo shoots in dangerous and risky situations. We're not going to go into a certain part of the city at midnight.
Yeah.
But if you do have ideas, get them to Tom ASAP, and we will set up a list of group shoots because they're always fun.
Also, just the bonsai are at Lewis Ginter right now for the month, and also the Virginia Orchid Society show and sale is coming up, I believe, in March at Lewis Ginter. So those are 2 places that are really good to go and shoot. The backgrounds are better this year for the bonsai than last year.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Sue, can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up in programs?
And I'll just segue into today's program, if that's okay with you?
Okay, unless Richard or Ray have.
Oh, okay, let me just do my thing.
Okay.
Just a quick update on programming. First of all, welcome. Today we're going to have a guest speaker on one of our photographs, MJ. Next month, for the month of March, we have secured a lawyer, Rocco Columbus, who will be here to talk to us about copyright issues as it pertains to photography. So we encourage you to chime in on for that. In April, we have Ann Savage, who teaches photography at John Tyler Bright Point Community College. She's exhibited around the country, and she also teaches Photoshop. So she will be here to help us give you an idea on how to restore some of your older photos. Perhaps you've got grandparents or other relatives that you don't know what to do with it, but it's in a box somewhere. And then in April, we have Philip Columbus, who will join us to show us how to digitize and curate our old photos. So once you learn how to restore them, if you're not already scanning them and digitizing them yourself, we encourage you to come and join us for that. Philip is the father of Rocco Columbus, the lawyer. I also want to acknowledge Ken for giving me those leads, Rocco and his father, Philip. So we look forward to all of that. So we'll get reminders out for you in the newsletter. And we will be looking for other guest speakers kind of interspersed them throughout the year. So thank you.
Thank you. NJ, do you have anything other than your typical begging for?
Well, that kind of leaves me with nothing to talk about.
Oh,
But I do, as usual, I do need photographs for all of the categories. And I'm a little behind with working on the newsletter this month because of circumstances, but I do need these things a week before the end of the month. And if you've got any questions, please contact me and I'll do what I can to answer the questions.
as you know, in the last issue, we did start what we thought was an interesting feature on sort of photographer of the month, or featured photographer and so forth. But if anybody, that's not gonna work, but if anybody wants to volunteer, let MJ know, will you please? Because it's not an ego trip, it's a way of getting to know each other a little better and what kind of photography we all do. And if you don't volunteer, one of us will come knocking at the door and insist that you be next. Ray, anything on the money front?
Oh, sure. Just as usual, begging for members now, and for those people who were members to go and pay their 2023 dues. As of this minute, we have paid 23 members.
Page 23.
Paid 23, yeah.
Okay.
And so, we just keep. If you know somebody who wants to join, want to learn, want to enjoy this beautiful experience, please invite them.
One of the ideas you talked about a little last time was designing some kind of flyer. I've got a couple of ideas in mind. Should we go ahead with that? Something we can post in libraries and so forth? Yeah. All right, I'll go ahead with it. And I think that covers everything except, it was
Just want to say we really appreciate all the items that you're donating to Thomas Dale High School. Oh man, the young lady objected on her name is. I mean, is that correct? They were just so appreciative of it. And I understand that Frank has a whole dark room loaded to take there, which is fantastic and very much appreciated. I mean, when she came out to pick the things up at the end of last month after the meeting, she was so elated. Great. Yes, so I just want to say,
you want to add it to that, Nita?
No, I'm raising the driver's seat.
Okay. It's great. If you have stuff you don't have any use for anymore, you got a high school photography group that could really use it. We've already given them some things, and if you got anything else?
They're doing a film also, right? I mean, I know they're concentrating on digital, I'm sure, but are they using film for, like?
oh yeah, film cameras, yes.
Yeah.
She mentioned that, yes.
Yeah, she mentioned in an email, I think that Anita had triggered that they started off all their students with a manual film camera. And it'd be fully manual.
Great.
And they take them into the darkroom, and they have to develop the film and do the enlargement and so forth.
Good. Yeah, a lot of times it's easier for new photographers to only have to mess around with two durables.
shutter speed and aperture as opposed to the old ASA or, you know, changing 3, which is the calculus as opposed to algebra.
Certainly better than the starting them off with the, you know, one variable of pushing the button.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into our program. Sue, would you like to introduce our star for the day?
Yes. Usually when I come to our meetings, the first smile I am greeted with belongs to MJ Ferguson, who agreed to be our featured in-person photographer today, and we're glad she did. She was a member of the Camera Club of Richmond back in 2012 and 13. She was the vice president, and then after that, she became the membership director. And soon after, she joined the Richmond Digital Photography Club, and we're glad she did. Because since 2019, she has been our wonderful secretary, and she's just not another pretty face. She's doing a great job there, and also she has been our editor and co-editor of our excellent newsletter. MJ was born and raised here in Richmond, and she's lived different parts of the country, so she's been able to photograph the DC area, certainly Richmond, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Ashland, Oregon. So let us greet her with our warm smiles and our.
Thank you, Sue. Goodness gracious.
It's gonna be hard to live up to that.
Yeah, I know. All right. Are you about ready?
Sure.
I'll let you know. Okay, thank you. All righty. Well, I started taking photos and when I was a child in the 50s. I was using a brownie box camera. And my parents were kind enough to encourage this interest, especially my father. He was an avid photographer. He's the guy that with the camera that always showed up at family gatherings starting in the 1930s. He also photographed his heavy construction jobs in DC in the 40s, and he took photos of his life in the tropics when he was building airfields for the military in the Pacific during World War II. In 1972, Daddy bought me my first SLR. It's a Canon FTB. I love that camera. That same year, I started working for the Smithsonian's Museum of Natural History. And my job was to operate a scanning electron microscope to examine everything from individual pollen grains to micromorphology on insects and the microscopic features of moon rocks and tiny details of porch sweepings from Pompeii. The SEM is an instrument that became commercially available only a few years before I started working at the Smithsonian. It was developed in Cambridge, England. And we had a Cambridge Mark IIA, one of the first models that ever came out. It uses an electron beam rather than photons, like a camera does, to produce high resolution, high depth of field, high magnification images of the surface of a subject. And the magnification can range anywhere from 20x to 200,000 magnifications. After taking the micrographs, I then developed the 4x5 negatives that we produced in the lab's darkroom, and I also used the darkroom to do some printing for the lab and also for myself. So let's see, can we show the first slide, please? Okay, this is a photo I've actually found on the internet. That's me on the left, and that's one of our entomologists on the right. And this is the Cambridge Mark IIA scanning electron microscope. So if you look at this little screen, I don't have a pointer, but that little screen that looks kind of yellowish, it's right above my head. That is where the image showed, and both the scientist and I, as the operator of the equipment, had to look into that little screen and decide if the picture that we wanted was in that screen. It took very wonderful images, and I'll show you some of the images that it took. Okay, these are pollen grains taken by the scanning electron microscope. And the top photo is the whole pollen grain, and the bottom set is what they call the taxonomy, the detail on the surface of pollen grains. Pollen grains here, the individual pollen grains taken are anywhere from 1,600 to 5,000 magnification. But if you look at the lower pictures, those go up to 7,500 magnifications of the surface of a pollen grain. I did a lot of pollen work when I was there. This is from one of the publications that I contributed to. Now this is another one that I contributed to, and I found some on the internet. These are micromorphology of insects, and it's kind of hard to explain, but if you look at the top two rows, that's kind of the dorsal perspective of the insect, so you can see what's called the back, the dorsal side. And those magnifications are 40x, 40x and 35x, 80x. And then the bottom two rows deal with the ventral surface of these. And one of these, that middle one on the third row, is where we get the following two micrographs. So they're looking at the sternal area of the insect, and then it goes up higher magnification to, let's see, to 1000x, looking at the surface detail. And then the photograph, the first one on the left, on the bottom row, is a close-up of that area where those little designs are. They're called CK, and that is 3,750. So this is how detailed insects are. It's not just the cute pictures you see in their eyes. There's really fantastic detail on insects.
Is this for research?
Yes, it was. Yeah, the folks at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History are mostly taxonomists, which means they look at the samples that they work with, whether it's a butterfly wing or some mineral from somewhere, or pollen grains or whatever. And they develop taxonomy that goes with, which means they call it and define it for other people to work on. And the scanning electron microscope was instrumental in getting a lot of the detail out, because they get their work done because of the high magnification and the high depth of field, which you see is very high depth of field. Okay. So
MJ, when you were preparing the specimens for the electron microscope, I read in the past that you would have to like bombard them with gold in order to have the electrons have a surface to reflect from.
very good, Tom. Yes. We want to go into a little more detail about SEM. The samples sit on a grounded area in the stage. It's all under vacuum. The electron beam is sent from what's called the gun at the top of the column, and this beam goes down and strikes the sample, and the sample effectively becomes part of the circuit. So in order to do that, these biological samples are non-conductive. They have to be made conductive. So we did what was called sputter coating, a very, very light film of gold. And as you can see, it did not obstruct the detail, but that effectively made the samples conductive, being part of the circuit. So that allowed them to be viewed in this level of detail. Thank you for the question, Tom.
When I was in college, we worked with a transmission electron microscope, and we had a totally different method of preparing samples, but they were very, very thin slices of the samples.
Yeah, I've done a little TEM work too, and frankly, I like this better. It's more interesting to me. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The transmission electron microscope looks through things, whereas this was, yes, sir.
So when you're done with the bud, does it become jewelry after that?
Yes, it could, if you can actually see it. So we looked at it, yeah, we really couldn't see with the naked eye. You could see these bugs, but yeah. All right, well, while I was working at the Smithsonian, I did a lot of traveling in and around the DC area with a circle of friends, and we took camping trips and bike rides and stuff like that all over the place, either in DC or, you know, sometimes overnights to out of town festivals and things like that. Thing is, we all were interested in photography, so we all took our cameras with us. And when we got back, we would look at each other's photographs and see how everyone photographed the same object. So then we could discuss, you know, why did you use that angle? Why did you come in close on this one, etc. And I got a great deal out of doing that. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, along the way, I obtained a master's of forensic sciences degree after 10 years in DC, and I took a job as a forensic scientist with the New Mexico State Police Crime Lab in Santa Fe in 1982. And my job was to be a trace evidence specialist. And trace evidence is anything that can connect a person, one person or place or thing to another person, place or thing. It's like paint chips and hair transfers and pieces of broken
So
glass.
you were Abby on NCIS. So.
I don't know, I've never watched that program. But anyway, this was all microscopic. Now, New Mexico State Police did not have an SEM at that time. They do now. But I used an optical microscope for doing that. I also worked crime scenes, which means I did photography at crime scenes. So I was using my photography on a semi-professional basis, taking pictures of dead people and evidence and skid marks and stuff like that. It was really interesting. Anyway, along the way, while I was doing that, I also took my camera all over the state of New Mexico and took a lot of interesting photographs. I also met my husband, who was also a forensic scientist, and we got married. And in 1989, we moved to Oregon to start working, both of us, at the National Fish and Wildlife Forensic Laboratory in Ashland, Oregon. My job at that laboratory was as a firearms and trace evidence specialist. It's a microscope, optical. And, is somebody talking? You have a question? No? Okay. If I'm going too fast, tell me, because I'm not much of a public speaker. Anyway, to examine and photograph evidence for research and technique development of lots of different things, including expended bullets, the micromorphology of elephant ivory, and the structure and elemental composition of shot pellets. But almost anything you can imagine, we could adapt to looking at in the SEM. We were also one of two forensic laboratories in the entire country that had a special firearms comparison stage that we could put into the SEM and actually do firearms comparisons, looking at the surface of bullets or cartridge cases or whatever. So let's look at the next slide. Okay, this is a newspaper clipping. It's a really terrible picture. But you remember that Mark IIA SEM that I used at the Smithsonian, that little tiny screen? Well, this is where we progressed by the late 80s, having these very large screens. We could put two different things, images on each one of those screens, but it's basically the same thing. We have the electron column and then the controls over here that you use to get the images if you wanted. All right. I guess at this stage, I'll show this picture. Now, this is something that I brought with me when I quit because I liked it so much. It's such a cool picture. And I apologize for not having a slide of it. This is the surface of an expended bullet. This is an aluminum case, excuse me, around a lead bullet. So what we have here is the candelure on the bullet. The bullet hit a target, so that means that the front part of the bullet peeled back. But this is the important part right here, right in here. This contains the microstriations that are picked up by the softer material inside a steel barrel. These are individual to a particular gun. They evolve over time. This is the result of grit or scratches or whatever manufacturing marks. And these are the microstriations that you use to do comparisons in bullets, which I did a lot of, both on an optical microscope and in SEM. But I just like this photograph because the jacket looks great. You see the lead down here. And anyway, I brought it with me when I left.
Can you pass it around?
Excuse me?
Can you pass it around?
Yeah, sure.
So that's how you identify the bullet that came from which particular gun.
Yeah, you need a sample from a suspect's firearm, and then you have this came out of a,
And all the striations of every gun are a little bit different.
oh gosh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Look, that's what the district writers say.
I mean, Abby did that a lot.
Okay. Maybe I should watch that program. Okay, so let's get off of this. And I just wanted to demonstrate something else here. These are shot pellets. This is number 6 shot pellets, and this is an optical micrograph. Taken with a regular sit on the counter with a microscope. You can see you don't get a hell of a lot of detail out of that. It just looks like gray circles. Well, this is what happens when you put it in the SEM. And this is one of my research projects. I was looking at different kinds of shot pellets, and that's of importance to wildlife management to make sure people are using the appropriate shot. So a lot of times we get carcasses in of animals or birds that were shot, and we had to find out if they were using lead, which was prohibited, or they're using something else. So there were several, this is only maybe 2/3 of the different types of shot that were out on the market at that time. So I looked at all of them as a surface, just looking at the surface of the objects and what's called secondary electron mode. It just looks at the surface. And then here is what's called backscattered electron imagery. It shows surface, but it also shows the difference in elemental composition. So for instance, this one over here is tungsten shot that's in a polymeric matrix. So the polymeric matrix does not yield electrons. It's low atomic number. However, the tungsten, which is high atomic number, gives us a very bright picture. So you can see how these look. This is tungsten matrix shot. You can see the tungsten inclusions. Oh, look at that dice. Anyway, I'm not going to get deep into this, but this is an example of what we did with one of my research projects. And these magnifications are like the one on the left at the end is 2000. Most of these are 2500, 2000. So that's what the surface of the shot pellets looks like. So I think that's it. All right. So I promise you, I'm almost finished.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Now, I loved operating the SEM because it would take you into a world that people don't normally go. I mean, it's just amazing the images you got out of that microscope. Anyway, so now can you try the other one, the slideshow? Yes.
What was your education background to go into the Smithsonian?
I had a bachelor's degree in biology, and that's got me into the Smithsonian, and then I got the forensics master's and I started doing this. So what I have here is just a rotating example of some of the pictures I shot. So now we're going to go into the photography.
I gotta change computers,
Oh, okay.
because this one doesn't have PowerPoint on, or it doesn't have a licensed PowerPoint.
Okay.
What's the next softest pellet next to lead? That's not a trick question, I'm just curious, because I'm having a hard time getting. lead.
Well, you know, I wish I'd read the publication a little closer, but in this particular project, we were looking not only at the surface and the elemental content, but we also developed a field technique for our agents to use in the field if they found what they thought someone was shooting some lead or something. So it was, some of these pellets were magnetic, some were not. Some would, when you crush, some would just crush flat, some would crush with indentations, or they look like fractured. So we had developed a whole set of field tests that could be done by just taking someone's shot shell and opening it up and performing these tests on pellets. So the softest one is probably one of those tungsten matrix, because that was polymeric material with metal embedded in it. Okay, so in 1998, my husband and I returned to Richmond to take over the operation of Daddy's business after he passed away. We operated the business for 3 years and then we sold it. And I then got a job as a scanning electron microscopist at the White Oak / Infineon microchip manufacturer out in near Sandston. And I used the SEM to look at the microarchitecture of the products there, and boy, that was amazing. I wish I had retained some of those images, but that kind of thing is very proprietary. But the microarchitecture of memory cells, this is all done chemically. It's just completely amazing. At any rate, I worked there for 5 years, and then I went over to Tredegar Film Products, their technical center, which is also in that same area. And again, I used SEM as well as optical microscope and other analytical instruments to reverse engineer competitors' films and products, and to perform defect analysis and quality control on our own film products. And that was also fascinating. I mean, you see a piece of plastic, even transparent piece of plastic, and you have no idea that it's probably got 4 or 5 layers in there. And you can only see that with special microscopes. So how we do it?
It's, I got it up, it's up there.
Oh, okay. All right, this is just kind of some of the pictures I've taken over the years that I kind of like, so they're up there. Unfortunately, my photographic muse gradually deserted me for most of the 2000s. In 2011, I retired and bought my first digital SLR, a Canon T1i. And after that, I bought my first Photoshop disc. I should mention that I also was introduced to Photoshop at the Fish and Wildlife Forensic Lab, because I worked with the scientific illustrator to put together exhibits that I could take to court when I testified in criminal cases. I joined the Camera Club of Richmond, and I started taking photo classes and Photoshop classes. And I particularly enjoyed the critiques with the Camera Club of Richmond when I put my images up, and I learned a great deal along the way. And of course, in 1917, I joined the RDPC, and I have been really enjoying working with all the incredibly talented, knowledgeable photographers on a much more meaningful and closer level than you have with the Camera Club of Richmond, which has, what, 100 more plus members. And finally, my interest in photography include nature and landscapes and taking pictures that tell a story. I also really enjoy working with Photoshop on some of my photographs to produce creative effects. Like this one, that's a impressionistic filter. So I guess that's it, except for the photos. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, MJ. That was fascinating and
Very interesting presentation, MJ.
very interesting, very interesting. And the moral is don't mess with MJ. Okay, part 2.
Part 2.
Sue.
Tag team, MJ. So if you wanted to commit the perfect crime, or if you are writing a mystery novel, be sure to take her out for lunch, dinner, or whatever, on a cruise ship. That was just great. Okay, let me unmute this. I am going to Okay. Can you
too loud?
You.
I'll just mute.
Yeah,
I'll just mute myself.
and this will pick you up.
Okay, that's great. Good morning. I'm going to take us through how to do a montage. And I know many of us are purists. And we're not going to use Photoshop to manipulate things, and certainly it's for a different purpose. If you're doing photojournalistic piece of work, that's different than what I'm going to be showing you. I like lots of people use montage and collages interchangeably. Some people will say, well, montage, you have all the same kind of materials, and collage, you can have all types of different mediums, but I'll be using montage because it reminds me of masks and magic. So, and just some caveats before I begin. I'm not a graphic illustrator or a graphic designer, as will become apparent to you. And it worked when I did this at home. So, and the photos that I'm using are purely for educational purposes. And it's just for the demonstration because I don't own them. I'm sure our copyright lawyer would be proud of me for saying that. It's just purely for demonstration purposes. So let's begin. Now I know that sometimes, wait a second. I need to share my screen, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, here it is. I hit the green, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the screen and then hit the share again.
Okay. All right, good enough. I know, again, a lot of us are purists, and I know that an image for us, the important thing is the composition, the lighting, the exposure, the clarity, and all of that, the ISO and so forth, depth of field. But sometimes it's just the plain meaning of what our final product is. And so a few years ago, before COVID, at the end of Mass, the priest, tells us to pick up a bulletin, we're having a spaghetti dinner, whatever. And also, please pray for Daniel. And I stood a little straighter in my chair because I knew Daniel and the family, not well, but I knew them. Daniel at the time was a freshman at Virginia Tech. So we didn't know what was going on. We just knew he was gravely ill. And a few short weeks after that, it's unrelated to COVID and it was before that. So a few weeks later, he passed away and we were stunned and devastated. And I wanted to do something for the family because I knew them. We were volunteers. I knew Daniel when he was in middle school, Sunday school. And I knew the mom, and they're great volunteers. And I wanted to do something for them, and I didn't know what. So I came up with this. Can you see that? Oh, there. No.
You staring at one.
Yeah, well, I have a few that I'm gonna go through right there real quick.
Yeah, that's.
Can you share?
There.
Okay. Okay. There, okay, so I didn't know quite what I was doing, but I wanted to do something for the family. And I did get permission from the mom after the fact, because I knew she wouldn't mind if I used some of the photographs. But this was a montage I had given to them. But that's what I meant about the meaning. And those were not my photographs, but I put that together and I wanted to. And soon around that same time, I thought, ooh, I should do this with my kids, because I don't know if you're like me, but as soon as we got the digital, it's like I stopped putting the scrapbooks together. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna put it all in one photograph. So when my son graduated, that's what I did, and when my daughter did, they're like, oh, mom, but I like doing it, and I got a chance to learn. And also for a wedding. And I know they have this in their home, because at least the last time I went there, it was hanging up, so unless they put it, oh, she's in the driveway. But, they're fun, and not too long ago, I did this montage. I was going through some of the old clippings of, my kids. And you may have grandchildren who are playing soccer or in cheer club and all of that, that you might think to do something like this, or I know, family members appreciate it. And also, this is my niece in high school, she loves volleyball. And I know the parents are saying, oh my gosh, this is great, and all of that. The other parents would like it, but I'm like, I'm not going that far. Just for family members. So, without further ado, let's begin. I'm gonna start with my plain screen. And I'm going to change this color to black. Just give yourself a second to adjust there. And the theme I took was from the Super Bowl last night. So what you do is you get your image and you take your rectangular marquee and you take it, and I think I need to get part of this helmet there, so I'm just going to drag it. And then you drag this image to your new document. Control T to get my bounding box and enlarge that up. I saw the game last night, and it was an exciting game for me. And I really didn't have a dog in the fight, so it didn't really matter which team, but it was really exciting. So after you drag your part of the image that you want to isolate, go up to select and hit subject. And let it do its thing. And we will see how well Photoshop has selected Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback. Looks pretty good, except for the crook of his arm here. So we're gonna get the quick selection. See if we can get the crook of his arm a little bit in there, and maybe just a tiny bit on the other side. Don't be too intimidated with Photoshop. There's a lot to learn, and it's changing. So once you do that, let's make sure we have his toe. Actually, let's not do that, and I'll show you how to fix that. Now, I like to say montage for the mask. Go down below to the panel to the right, hit this little symbol there, and there you have it. Now, I want his toes back in there, so those of you who use Photoshop, you probably know black reveals, white, black conceal, white reveals. Make sure your default is back, and I do want to reveal his foot, part of it. So, coming back. Okay, so we've got his foot there, and yeah, we got that. Okay. I also like to name the layers. Patrick one. Right? And I'm going to position him down a little bit. We can maybe pull in his helmet a little bit by revealing it. Again, using my white paintbrush, you can see down here in the left corner, bottom left. Let's see if we can reveal a little bit, or it might be just like that for the photographs. Just a subtle change, just a little bit. Okay, now we want to get the other. Where's the other? There's the other quarterback. And again, I'm going to take my rectangular marquee and I'm just going to isolate him. Let's make sure we've got this helmet again. And then I'm going to drag him with my move tool. I'm going to drag him back to my document that I call montage demo. There he is. There. Make them a little smaller. Control T to get your boundary boxes. A little smaller. I like to do shift so it doesn't get out of whack. Now we're going to do the same thing, commit. And here's where you're going to select again. Select the subject. And Photoshop, again, will do a pretty good job. Most of it, and let's see, I'm not going to worry about this little strap right now. That looks like pretty good, that's his panel. Looks good, good enough. And then I'm gonna go down here to my little place there. And see how it looks. Okay, so far so good. Gonna put him down there. First, he looks pretty big compared to Patrick, and I think he is anyway. He's bigger than most players. Okay. Now, I'm on Patrick. If you hit the little mask to the right, you'll have some options just to look through to see if there's anything weird going on. I'm just gonna smooth them out a little bit just to make sure it's there. And then when you mask, I like to make sure it's on the layer mask, because you have the option of creating a new, whatever, selection, or you want a new document, you want to put in a new thing. I like to put them on a regular, his update layer mask. The other image I'm going to put in is the Super Bowl logo. I found one that was already isolated, which was great. So in the interest of time, we're just going to use this guy. Move the whole thing over to my montage. Down below. I think I want Jalen to be behind the logo, so I'm going to put the logo behind both of them. And let me name him. And you know, if you don't name your layers, sometimes it can be very confusing if you have like 12 layers. Which one was it? And we're gonna put behind them both, and you can move it. And you can also, I know you can change the blending mode of that, but let's do just one more. Since he was victorious last night, we'll use him. I also had a backup picture in case the other quarterback won, just in case for today. So we're gonna isolate him so we don't get the other players involved, and Photoshop doesn't have to work as hard. Using my move tool, and I'm taking him back up to my montage. Put him behind. Now we're gonna close out the other two so you can see. Again, I'm gonna select him, and again, you just have to play with it and see what Photoshop gives you. And it looks like they've done a pretty good job. Thankfully, back in the day, you have to go do it by yourself. And we'll just go ahead and go down to the layer here and mask it. Now, you see his finger there. So I want to hide that. I'm gonna go to my brush. That's my brush is too fat. Gonna make it smaller, and I'm also gonna make it skinny, so I can just get right in there and hide that. Okay, a little too skinny, but you get the idea. And his finger is looks like it got chopped off, so I'm going to try to put that back in. Doesn't want to cooperate with me today. Let's see. Reveal, opacity. All right. Good enough for today, and then I can get that ghost out, but we won't do that right now, although it's so distracting. Now, if you're at home, I know you're gonna like, I'm gonna do this again. Change the logo. All right, let's make this a little larger so you can see it. Let's commit. Put Patrick behind. Patrick, this layer. We'll put it behind the logo there, right? One other thing I want to do, let me close down the others. You can use a gradient, which is nested here with the paintbrush. I'm gonna just keep it there. The opacity is about, I think I'll go back down there. Just gonna take out a little bit of his foot and his leg. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring back everybody. Now, looks kind of boring like that, but you could also, what I like to do on this one is I picked the color gray. And I changed my brush. Sue's Fog Black. Okay, there, now it's gonna be that one, and it's gonna be large. Not too large, because then your computer will freeze, right? It's like, oh God, what happened here? And you gotta wait forever for it to unfreeze. And if you notice up here in the mode, up here, it should be normal. I'll leave that there, and I will. Oops, excuse me, I want to create a different layer. I'm gonna call this my fog. See a bit. You can change the direction of your brush. If you go to this folder up here. Here, you can change the spacing, whatever you want. You can flip it upside down, whatever. So you have control of that. Now, see these guys, let's see, let's go back to the logo. Let's see if it blends. Might blend differently, just depending on what you want. This may just leave it. You can leave it like that if you wish. And you can just, again, you can change the size of the brush. Now, I'm gonna put the logo, I like it back at normal, but I am gonna lower the opacity a little bit. And I could also fog these guys out too, and make the victorious quarterback stand out, Now, if you don't like, if you don't like that background, change the brush here so it doesn't get too crazy. If you don't like that foggy background, what you do, this is one that I pulled off. And I am going to put it back there. Maybe your grandkids have played in a, in a major tournament or given a science project presentation. That's pretty cool. They'll probably say, "Oh, Mom." You do that, and if you want, let's see, you want fog and in, you could do that as well. So it's really up to you in terms of how you want to do your montage for your kids, grandkids, and if you start now, it's February. Once you figure out how to restore or, some of your older photos, by December, November, or somebody's birthday, I think they would appreciate it, your kids and then the grandkids and all of that, and you can get all kinds of pictures into one effort. So that's just one way to do a montage. That's no problem there. That's okay. So that gives you an idea on how to do. There's different types of montages. You could do. Of course, I don't have it here. No, wait, final movie stars. Some of us may already know some of these characters, but you can feather out. See how I did this layer here, Dick and Liz. You can feather it out and mask it, and I chose the color red because it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. Over here on Fred Flintstone, you can go to the filter gallery and see what kind of edge you want. Okay, and you could do that, and you probably already know that. Many of you do use Photoshop and you've experimented with that. Here, Jackie Gleason, you can use a brush, a special brush, whatever, whatever, I don't have another brush, a good example, otherwise you're gonna have the big fog thing, we don't want that necessarily. Or just you could, you can make that. You could change, you just using a different kind of brush. And here on Dick Van Dyke, we already showed you how to isolate your images or the people that you want. And then you could use a gradient, another gradient. Let's make sure this is with all. Just a little gradient here. It looks from it. I'm on where am I? Dick Van Dyke. Next, make sure you're on the correct layer. Can't tell you how many times I'm like, I made that change. What's going on? Well, you're not on the right layer. Oh, you didn't tell me. So you can mess with the gradients. So these are just some examples of what you can do with montages. And as I mentioned, you start now. By the holiday time, when you frame it, that'll be great and well appreciated. And as I mentioned, I don't know if you can see these, but that one I just recently did, there was a church event and I used a different feathering and isolation and some gradients there. Also another church event, and this was like forever layers upon layers and layers, but they all like their friends. And as I mentioned, meaning sometimes is what's important. When my brother passed away, I think it was in 2019, and then when my sister passed away, just last year, and everything is in a hurry mode because the funeral is such and such. Can you please do a video and all of this? So this is one of the last frames from the video. So if you have any questions, grab me after. We can go at Panera's, have a cup of coffee. We'll also get MJ. It's like, how did you do that? So thank you very much for being with us.
You said we can get this done by Christmas?
Yeah, sure.
Christmas 2033. Just like she doesn't know me very well.
All right.
Why don't we take a 1 minute stand up break and then we'll have some photos here.
I wonder if there's any way to. Oh, okay. No, they have switches.
Yeah, normally it's. Yeah.
I guess this is that a sound baffle design.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe what I'm saying. I got like one every 10 forums. And when you add back, it's not volume, but I don't know volume. Well, at home, I've got more control on what, I mean, I'm hearing
all the way up there. But it all here. But one thing, I can stop and start a page. If I miss something, I can stop and try again. I think bigger thing, or in most cases, I can close it down.
That's scary.
How are you? I'm doing great.
You're gonna have any more than me?
Eagle Creek, yeah, we, I was just lining up with Mike, all the dates, he shuts down, I think he started back up, he shuts down in part of December and January, because he's updating. Six or 8 days when they're guarding and.
Near Thompson. There was that.
Yeah, I need to get. Yeah, but yeah, it's gonna be real popular. Anybody can keep trying to go out, you don't have to go out. He does stand pretty booked up. I've got all my days. They should have been booked by now. But he's got a regular, he knows what's up. He puts me in.
Right, you know, back.
Stay there. Where's that? Yeah, yeah. It's hard to get that close to animals like that. We've been getting raptors here locally, and I cut those pretty close to one thing. Like it, too hot on the front, fighting. I got pictures of them the day before yesterday. And then down on the flood wall in Richmond, that's cool down there, but a little tiny house. I have a lot to do with them. That's positive. But they're, you do Facebook. Okay, I post Facebook. A lot of them. Yeah. All right. I'll show it to you later. Okay. How's that? That was good. Okay, the theme this month was black and white. When your shot comes up, tell us what you did.
Hey, these are, very old. Oh, okay, what do I point it at? Well, not the screen.
Use the. Now let's go to the next one.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
these are all old,
Helicopter will come back.
from the mid-70s and a few from mid-80s, so they're all almost 50 years old. I'm just not really knowing what I was doing. They're all grainy and out of focus and scratched. In other words, they're great pictures. They're pictures of people that it was not necessary for me to animate them. This is at a construction site with a friend of mine that I was working with. Another fellow that I worked with, truck driver, Billy Edenton. Let's see, this is at Convalescent Center in Sweet Springs, West Virginia.
Nice face.
I wanted, first I wanted it to be better in focus and clearer, but. I'm owner of a hot dog wagon in Lyndhurst, Virginia. This hot dog wagon right here, you can see what time frame it was. Hot dogs 45 cents. My friend, Mr. Pat, here on the left, you'll see more of him. Friend of mine, John Burkhart, at my trailer in Thornburg in Spotsylvania County. Jimmy Langridge from Livingston landfill in Spotsylvania County came over from England in the early part of the century. Originally had a book passage on the Titanic. He got diphtheria, they couldn't go, so he had a million stories. He was an old merchant sailor, and we'd sit in the back of the truck that the county had set up, had a little couch and a refrigerator, and we'd sit there and drink beer and watch people coming in and out of the landfill. The Wallace family came by on their trip from New Jersey down to Tennessee to pick up a couple of their other kids. And got a shot of them. There's Mr. Pat. And like I said, you do not have to encourage them to be independent in school. A friend of mine from Washington, D.C., he was in the Foreign Service in Paris with Julia Childs, actually. They were so excited when Julia learned to cook because she was so big and awkward. And said, oh, she's got something to do now. And he had a million stories from the Foreign Service. Too many stories to go through. What's Mr. Lee here? Joey Di Pasquale went to a medical school in Italy. So this actually somebody from my hometown actually made it. This another friend of mine. This is a cavalcade of ghosts for me. The vast majority of these people are no longer with us. Frank Testa. I can't tell all these stories. But the Muffler Man on Route 301 in southern Maryland. An iconic statue you may or may not have come across in your travels. My father and my brother and my nephew. My niece. Another one is not necessary to say. Railroad bridge over that in Sac River in New Jersey now. There's Richie again. You always knew when Richie was there. Looks like a Civil War picture. The long story behind that. My wife's sister back at White Sulphur Springs. Okay, got a picture of the gang in his mirror sunglasses. My playground in the 60s, the New Jersey Meadows, what a great place. Completely unsupervised and anything goes. That's what it looked like then. And now it's covered over with dirt, so you don't see it, but it's still there.
It's still there, and you survived.
And the jury's still out. The Poolsville, Maryland Town Hall. The White's Ferry, which is no longer in existence. That's all I've got.
Did you crop those down, or are these pretty much as is?
A lot of them are very close to as is.
You got them close.
And get on that. Because they were my friends. They,
What did you use? projects?
Yes, for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, a Samoka camera.
Oh, gee.
It was completely manual, all guesswork.
Oh,
That's why they're all out of focus.
Well, as you know, I have an affection for trains and an interest in trains. I belong to the River City Three Railers Club, which is the train group that has the big display at the big greenhouse. Some of you came over last year and took some pictures. And we have open houses, by the way, once a month. And they're open to the public, and they're on our website. I can send it out to you. But our big display is 26 feet long by 42 feet wide. And we have a whole new display of scenery. The detail is really amazing. So if you're interested in micro photography, come over and feel free to shoot away. So this is just a picture of a Norfolk Southern train. This happens to be near the post office in Midlothian. There's a small crossing there, and that train is kind of behind our house across the street, and I can hear him coming. And he's on a different schedule now, but a couple of years ago we had a snowstorm, and I got down to the crossing and I waited for about an hour for him to come. And I just like the shot. He's coming around the curve, and the tracks are kind of leading line right into the locomotive. So
Chuck, I hope you're using a long lens and not standing that close to it.
no, actually I was standing. Well, no, I did kind of barrel in them. I did have a longer. But he goes, he's only right there. He's only probably doing 35 miles an hour. But I used to teach for VCU down in Martinsville, and I realized that train was going down 301 every day down to Burke. And so I would get out, and one day I had to make a hose carrying camera like all of us do, and I popped a picture of him, and then I realized I could go down a little bit farther. So I trailed him or went ahead of him. One day I saw him pull in to one of the Amelia, and he stopped and he went across the road to get a cup of coffee. When he came back, I had pulled in and I said to him, the engineer, I said, you ever see a guy snapping pictures of you, an old guy snapping pictures of your train? He says, yeah. I said, so he got the conductor out, and the two of them stood in the front of the and then what I was doing after that, thing way out of it. This was actually this was a house fire in Petersburg, and I was down there for something, and I saw the fire equipment going down, and they hooked up the hose. But I just kind of thought it was kind of interesting the way the hose line had that angle to it, and the fitting wasn't very tight, so you could see the spray coming off the top of it. So just kind of. This is another picture, train picture. It's actually in Roanoke. It's right. It's part of the Roanoke yards, but at the far west end of the yard. And there was this tender coal car, and then there's a steam locomotive you'll see next. But I kind of like the way the paint was kind of wearing off of there, and the detail of the paint scheme and the rivets and everything. Just kind of one of those old train pictures. It is completely accessible. You can walk right into that. And this was the locomotive you saw in the tender a minute ago. And it's just there. It's just kind of, and it's a little graveyard right there. They don't chase you off. Sorry, they don't chase you off. Oh no, that yard is probably 1.5 miles long, and you just pull into the parking lot there, and nobody's around. And I walk all around there, and just took pictures. Now the cab does have a screen in it, so you can't get inside. Yeah. Because there's some liability, but anyway. So these were all color pictures. And this one, some of you will remember a couple of years ago, I showed you this picture in color. It's in an area out I guess it would be south and east of Midlothian. And this was just an old beat up truck in a farmyard. And they had some flowers in it. But it's actually a nice picture in color, but I wanted to do it in black and white just to see. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Any questions?
Roger, start. Are these the ones? This is your,
Yeah.
these photos, huh? Right
That's
here,
what I didn't name.
okay.
Well.
Whoa.
Ah. Well, at least one of them shows. That's the Tortler Art Center at the CNU. And I tilted it at about 45 degrees. I took it in color, but you know, since it's all glass and the metal is black anyway, it didn't have much color to it. But I thought it was kind of intriguing because you can all see through there and you can't quite tell what's inside.
Are those reflections as well?
Well, some of them are reflections, but you're seeing through the glass. That's a glass atrium that's the art center. That's over at Scottsville. I guess it was an old depot or a train station. It looks like it's still being used by some maintenance people because there's a lot of gas tanks sitting at the end of it. But I just thought it was pretty neat looking old abandoned building. That's a mill that's at the McCormick Farm.
Yeah.
Off of 81. I forgot the name of the town, but anyway, they have a farm and a little museum there that you can visit. That's the Episcopal Church on Country Track Road.
Oh, yeah.
That's a church that's in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I was there about 3 weeks ago and I walked out to take some pictures on the street and stayed out about 10 minutes because it was too cold for me. That was one of the pictures I took. And this building was across the street from the church, basically. I just thought it was an interesting looking old building.
Yeah.
It had those funny little spikes up on top. It was too early for me to go to the wine, but.
So what, I'm gonna stay and spread?
I would like to turn items.
Walter White.
And that's the last one.
It's good, right? Hey, Ken, you gonna get the online ones?
Yeah, I got them here.
I have 4 shots. We were on a cruise last November and I took the shot with that little mirrorless camera that I got a few months ago in the summer. It was great. I just put it in like. So it was great to take it with me, but I have the kit lens, so I'll have to repitch my budget there. And before we go on, I am looking for a 24 to 70 lens for Nikon f2.8 for DSLR. If you know of anyone who's trying to upgrade or unload. I'm here. Okay, so that was one of them, and this is another one. I put that first one first. Because I take a picture. I liked all of, messing with it because I couldn't. I mean, with that little mirrorless and having the light there. So.
But that's what you got, you didn't
Yes.
fool with it.
I didn't mess with it.
Oh, that's nice, yeah, that's good.
And I think I have one more coming up. That one. So it was fun. That really, like I said, it was just very convenient, the little mirrorless, but the controls are really small and I'm like, where's my, where do I put the finger on? And it's up to if we can, but anyway, there we go. Thank you.
Very nice.
All right, this is me. Lazy day at the Italian restaurant. This happens to be in the Jewish section of Rome. We were, just roaming around there. We had taken a tour of the whole area and the central synagogue there, and we're just walking around. And I saw this waiter just, checking his social media. By the sign, hey, can you just go backwards? I just think it's interesting that they have falafel and hummus. That's how you can tell it's a Jewish section. Okay. The next one, this was at a Halloween thing, I don't know, it's probably pre-COVID, but we were at this house and this girl and another girl were out there kind of modeling, for the people who own the house or whatever. And she was just standing in that light, just
Nice.
darkened everything around her. And I just really like that.
What kind of house was it?
Sorry? What was the question?
What kind of house was?
I mean, it was not ill repute, but it was good. This is what we took that trip up to
Union level.
yeah, Union level ghost town. The old gas pump, I rusted out and whatever, and like the shadows and this is probably one of those pictures, Peter, where I think about it. This was taken so many years ago, I forget what. It was before I even knew what street photography was. I don't remember what town it was. And we're sitting there, and I saw this young lady just sitting there. And what attracted me to her was a tattoo. And so yes. But some people who've seen this have remarked that it was inappropriate because they imagine they see a crack in her butt, but you don't. And I didn't Photoshop that out. That's the way it was.
She knew it too.
So, but I do love this picture.
I probably didn't know.
This is in Morocco. Shopkeep with his chickens in the background. Virginia Beach, I have this thing called the Panther Pooch, series, and there was a lady with her little pooch in a basket, just couldn't resist, and there really isn't much more room to crop this one, Peter. This was at a model shoot. I took a workshop last week in photo encaustic, using encaustic wax with photos, and part of that workshop was a model shoot. She was the model. This was up in Kingston, New York. On the day that it was very cold here, it was 40 degrees colder up there. But we were inside, so it was bad. And this was actually in between. She was in between photographers, and I just caught her in a very pensive, moment. Really, really nice young lady. I think she was Eastern European, maybe Russian, and really wonderful woman. I just loved, when I got home and I saw her, I was like, oh wow, she got shots. This was at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. I just like the way, the gentleman was just, diving and leaning in with, over his head. This was actually better in black and white, that's not mine, it's somebody else. Because the wall itself had some colorations to it, it just distracted from the photo, so. I thought it was much better in black and white.
And when you shoot these, do you shoot them in color and then switch to black and white, or do you do the black and white?
No, I shoot them raw, so they're in color and switching to black and white.
Okay, this is one of mine. This is a flamingo down in a bird sanctuary down in North Carolina, which actually is a very interesting place to go. It's about a 2-hour drive. If anybody would be interested, that makes a really nice trip. There's a lot of different types of exotic birds down there. It's basically 2 hours, go down 95 and get off and go out into the boondocks. But it's a really neat place, and it was a pink flamingo, which does look really cool in pink. But I just thought converting it to black and white and really getting the eye on it is what I liked. This is the Upper Doyle Rivers Falls in Shenandoah. I have this photograph down at Artworks right now as part of their all photography show. And that was in June of last year. And I just kind of liked it. I've done it both in color and black and white, and I really like the black and white version of it. This is the James River. This is where the James River is crossed by the Blue Ridge Parkway. There's basically a footbridge that goes underneath the Blue Ridge Parkway. And so I took the photograph there this past October. It was a fall day, but I converted it to black and white just to see some of the details. This I just took about a month ago out at Lewis Ginter. It was a very frosty morning, and this is a camellia bud with a lot of frost on it. And I got a number of photographs that morning. There were a lot of things with ice on them, which I thought looked pretty good. This is a paperweight that I have at home that has these are bubbles and patterns inside the glass paperweight, and it basically has reddish colors to it, but I converted it to black and white just to see more of the detail. This is a tulip. It was a yellow tulip. If it's in color, almost everything is in basically the same shade of yellow. And I converted it to black and white just because I like the very high key look to it. And I thought that was a pretty cool photograph.
These are mine. This little dog was out. This is in Jackson Ward area, and we were out taking pictures, and I saw the dog looking out the window, and it was just,
It's adorable.
yeah. This is from another walk. This is now down near Main Street Station. And gentleman sitting out there smoking a cigar, just enjoying it. This was down in Bedford. It was next to or I believe it is the doorway going into a restaurant that we ate lunch in. Ed probably knows when this was taken.
Yeah.
and I did this one up to look like a journalistic photo from the 60s or so.
It's why they chased us away.
Yeah, they were.
They thought we were immigration guys.
This is at a farm out in near
It's out. Go out 33, it's out that way. And that's still getting used. It's an old building there.
I was on the farm.
This was a little girl down in doing a reenactment down at Chip Oaks. And I thought she was cute, and I liked it a lot better in black and white than in color. That's cropped way in. Williamsburg Inn. And this guy was from H. Croft back before Christmas. And that's out at Tagahoe Plantation.
And on that shot with the horses, you saw them coming, so.
I was down probably 100 yards or 100 feet or so, and I saw them coming out of a barn, walking along the fence, and I took off. I had just been at the archway,
Oh, wow.
and when I saw the horses, I said, I gotta get it from there. So I took off and ran down there and waited for them to get into the arch, and then took the shot.
Yeah.
This is at the D-Day Memorial, and I like the moon right over top of the helmet.
Yeah.
There, I wanted to get that moon in there. So I got way down and got that one. And this is also at the D-Day Memorial.
Nice.
And okay, these are Nancy. Is Nancy on?
I don't think Nancy is.
I didn't see her.
She was.
Yes, she was at one time.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess she must not be. All right. Layer, where's another high key? UVA columns. That's what this says. X. All right, Peter.
Yeah, these are mine. This is
You want to do
this is a protest, the gun rally protest a few years ago. And had a great time down there, actually. This was one of the protesters.
Which side was he on?
He was in favor of guns. And I just thought it was a very pensive look. Another old timer. This is one of those restorations. I don't think it's in I don't think it's Colonial Williamsburg. But again, I liked the fact that he was just getting out of his nap. I can relate to that. Downtown, I don't know where, there's some columns. Again, down in the city, that's the walkway, part of the walkway bridge over the canal. Hollywood Cemetery, Confederate War Cemetery, you can't really go wrong there. And tons of colorful stuff, but I think the black and white suits the mood a lot better. That's oh, I can't remember. It's a little church outside of up somewhere up in north of the city. And it was one of those days where the clouds were perfect. And in color it didn't work as well, but converting to black and white, when you play with it a little bit, it came out the way I wanted.
It's very Hazel Adamish, with the black sky.
That was just a couple weeks ago. I was down in the city and I like the juxtaposition of what looks like an old courthouse with with, new buildings in the background. Oh, I call this one Home Sweet Home. It's, I don't know which road I was out on Patterson, I think, somewhere out countryside. And just saw this beside the road, had to stop and take a shot because it's just perfect. You know, an old abandoned farmhouse. Well, that's from a couple weeks ago, down at the War Memorial, and if you know the War Memorial, you know that that picture is flop.
Is what, Peter?
Flop,
Oh,
because the names would be the other way, so I just flipped it. So you still got the statue, but this time you could read the names of the war dead. That's it for me. Great.
Yeah, look at me.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess all of these will be kind of my walk around town, downtown. This is the water plaza, where they had water, some kind of water zones. Got it. Sometimes the water is on, sometimes not, so this is when the water was running and I captured it. I did crop it some, so. That's that. And this is the
federal.
take it from Koala. So there's nice. I like the clouds and reflections.
Yeah.
How does that look in color? I bet you it looks better in black and white.
Yeah, it does. And as a matter of fact, that's quite kind of a question I need to ask. This particular shoot, we were shooting in, with the camera set on the micro.
Oh.
As opposed to shooting it in color, raw color, and then changing it. It was actually designed to shoot it with,
So you shot it in JPEG?
I think it was still raw, but it was.
If you shot it in raw, you shot it in color.
Okay, but we changed it 7 to,
Doesn't matter, it won't
Okay,
affect,
yeah.
it won't affect the raw image.
Could you turn it back, because if it was in, a rock, camera raw, could you turn it back to color?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and it should capture the image in color, even though you have your settings set to, black and white. The advantage, something of having the camera set to, monochrome, is that you actually see the monochrome image, or if you're using a mirrorless, you see it as monochrome.
and I.
But the image itself will be captured in color
Okay.
if it's raw.
And yeah, it was wrong, it was shooting in one anyway, but it was set on monochrome, and what I saw in the monitor was black and white.
Mhm.
I hear you said I could turn it around.
Yeah, that just means the JPEG is gonna be in black and white, but the raw will just be the raw data, which is everything.
Nice to know.
In that gateway plaza, right across from the county.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it is, I'm not sure. The name of it is.
Town bar?
It's right here, right there. The lower.
There's a lot of green stuff like that, right then.
Yeah, the clouds make the data.
Clouds are perfect.
Oh, yeah. Is that on Main Street? Flowers and so along the way. This is coming up 8th Street, shot thing of the church through kind of an alleyway there. I found it interesting. And this is shout out to Anita. She always like to huge construction. Actually, it's a shout out to Anita and also to Chuck. We'll call it missed shots, a missed shot. The gentleman was climbing the ladder, and I wanted to get it before he got.
You missed by 3 feet.
One step.
One step.
We're great clouds.
Yeah, very thousand reflections of everything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's a barbershop right down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very large.
Yeah, and this is actually a panorama I did of this one. And this is HDR, the Megalon statue. And this was a sign that was there, the Megalon statue. This was during the time of the removal of the protest, removal of the statue and everything. And someone had quoted Alice Walker, healing began where the wound was made. And that's it, committee.
We go.
That's Chuck's.
Yeah, this is I didn't know I had this one in here.
That's the
Oh,
one
is
that
that
did-
when I sent you?
you sent
This is
me.
just I remember BMFA a few years ago had an exhibit of concrete masks on masks. And this was one of its color, but I like it better in black and white, frankly. It's got a nice brown tone to it in color, but there's a lot of detail in it, so.
Who went to, everybody, that was a fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, great.
I taken some film shots of it and, did that. It's just amazing. Yeah.
We have any more?
No, that's it.
That's it. Okay. On time. 2 minutes, well. Okay, we're done. Thank you. We'll look for you next month and we'll be back.
What's the theme next month?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Oh, you don't remember that?
All right.
So-
The other line.
Pick up the chairs, well, actually,
Yeah, pick up the chair.
where are you going?